Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not So Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legion. Holy crap! I think this might be one of my favorite episodes. I just loved everything they did in this episode. Because I would say this season very much kind of feels aesthetically kind of similar to one, how it's like weird and trippy. Season 2 was weird and trippy in its own right, but I feel like season 2 was a lot more like psychological, like a lot more literally psychological. Like one, and even this is kind of psychological in a trippy way, but nevertheless, it's even this episode even retains some of that I feel like horror element that season 1 had. That I feel like season 2 didn't necessarily have as much, but nevertheless, there's so much that went down in this episode. So let's break it down. First and foremost, I love the whole conversation between Carrie being like, she's like, oh yeah, fun, I miss having fun, because she almost feels like, yeah, all of us are kind of growing up, and it's just kind of like, oh, I don't like that, kind of like they all kind of have to step up and be adults and stuff like that. Plus she's missing Carrie, which I'm surprised she's not missing him as much as she normally would, but I guess that's just kind of like, because last season she kind of got a lot of her independence last season, so I guess she's not as reliant on him anymore since they got separated, so I guess that's what that really comes down to. So I guess that's just kind of further progression of that. I guess it's even more reason why she's like, yeah, I feel like, yeah, like we're growing up, and she kind of is, because she's not even happening to be with him anymore. But you get what I'm trying to say. And then like everything with Ptonomy, like things getting wacky and weird, and he's just kind of like, oh, my mustache, what did he do to my mustache? I'm like, wait, what? And then time start messing up. I'm like, wait, did David and I was like, David and Switch messed up time. It's like, but they, I mean, it was in my head. I was like, but how did they mess up time? It's like they didn't interact with anyone directly. Yeah, they tried to, but it didn't work. I was like, was it because she went too far back in time? Like, what happened? I was like, did they try jumping too many times? I wasn't sure what happened. And then there's a whole thing with Lenny and Salmon, which I'll say Salmon. That's just how I say it, because I just realized that too when she said Salmon. I was like, I say it weird. Nevertheless, I was wondering, I thought that was kind of neat. It's like, oh, you want to name her another fish? And she was like, what? Salmon's not a fish, it's a color, duh. Because I love Lenny being like, oh, you're so smart. And they're going to name the daughter Violet and everything. And then from that moment on is when everything happens, because like, cutting, like, earlier was like the whole like Sid and Carrie situation of like that apple being in front of them aging, and it's like, okay, what the hell is going on? Time is broken, it's David's fault. And then David and Switch fall through, and it's like, wait, what's going on? And it's like they start repeating and it's like, what the hell is going on? And then like even at one point you see like, and it's so interesting because like Sid pieces together, she's like, this is it. Him breaking time is what destroys the world, potentially. That's what she was. I was like, is this how the world gets destroyed? Wait, what? Are you serious? And then like a creature starts reaching through, and it's like time repeats, and it gets closer and closer. I was like, what? Like I said, it was a spooky, scary episode in that regard. I love the aesthetic. Like, I'm just jumping right to it. I love the aesthetic of the demons. I was not expecting that to even be like a plot point this soon. Like, I mean, to be fair, like, this season's only going to be, like, 8 episodes, apparently, so I guess it's, like, I mean, we're, like, halfway at this point now, but it's, like, still, I wasn't expecting that. I also wasn't expecting there to be a multitude. I was expecting maybe one, but that just caught me off guard. It's like, no, they're messing up time because they literally eat time. That's trippy as hell. I love, David's kind of, and you see the cracks to David's mask even more in this episode, because for him, he's trying to be calm, cool, and collected, but obviously, memories of everything, like, oh, so close to saving my family, rather saving myself, but saw my mom and everything, and it just kind of hits him in a certain way. You can tell, like, when Lenny disturbs him, it kind of bothers him, but it's like, okay, I got to put on my show. He's surrounded by his kids, well, their family he's making. I didn't, is this the first time they've referred to him as Daddy? I think it is, because I feel like I would have noticed them calling him Daddy. Maybe it came up before and I missed it. Definitely, if it came up before, I definitely noticed it this episode. They're calling him Daddy. I'm like, oh, this is weird. I mean, to be fair, this is legitimately a cult and whatnot. And to kind of soothe his people, he kind of makes them kind of, I guess that's supposed to be him kind of like psychologically having sex with all of them and just kind of giving them the best sex of their life. Because even Lenny was like, okay, bro, we get it. Like, we all want to like bang you. Like, I guess it kind of gives him this like orgasmic feeling that kind of just like gives him a euphoric feeling, and they kind of just pass out. But Lenny's like, the fact of the matter is, it's like, yo, get your mess together, dude. The fact of the matter is, he's like, he's like, you need to say it in a nicer tone. She's like, I don't want you to stay now. I want you to get angry. And the moment he starts kind of getting a little perturbed, it's like the world literally starts getting dimmer. And Lenny's almost kind of like, okay, shit. And then he kind of comes back and is like, okay, you want me to do something? I will. I love the whole explanation from Switch, that basically if they tried more time traveling, they'll just make the situation worse, because the more doors they open, the more they kind of come into this world. Because like Farouk kind of knows what they are too, the time eaters, and basically explains that, or was it Switch that was kind of explaining more about them? Either way, there's that crazy part where just like everyone in the room disappears, and it's like, whoa, what the hell is going on? And it's like, okay, like he sends Switch and Lenny away. Is like, you guys go run, and he's going to confront the time eaters, and then they end up snatching him, and he winds up in a prison or something. And it's like, wait, what's going on here? Later on, he tries it, but his powers aren't working, and he's right across from his mom, and it's like, okay, so he's sent in the past and stuff like this. And so I'm like, oh, I guess this is supposed to be like, I was like, oh, well, we weren't really sure of the time frame, because I would assume that this would be before she gave birth to David, even met Charles, but nevertheless. So there's that. Then we cut to, one of my favorite things in this episode was Carrie, Farouk, and Clark. They go to the time between time, because it's where they're not at an advantage. And I love how aesthetically that's depicted by them being like almost stop motion, but it's more like a book, picture by picture. It's like picture, and that's how the story is told for their section of it in the time, because that's how time works and everything. And it was just, I love just the execution of it. Literally, there was like 2 or 3 points of dialogue at the beginning, and then the rest of it is just moving pictures. Not literally moving pictures, because it's like one picture frame, next picture frame, so on and so forth. Like I said, kind of like stop motion. I thought that was so good. Because I feel like there weren't really moments like that too much in season 2. There was some, I guess, but not, like I said, it's more reminiscent of season 1 in certain regards, which I don't want to make it seem like I'm shitting on season 2. I really like season 2, but I feel like this has a lot of similarities, more so tied into season 1, and I guess maybe you could look at it aesthetically, making sense, especially with the whole traveling back in time, but we're also trying to get back before all the craziness and stuff like that. It's just kind of fascinating to break it all down. Sid ends up crossing paths with her younger self. Now, that's crazy. Her at 16. That led to some very insightful conversation. First and foremost, I love that Sid's like, I need to get a drink. And it's like, oh, how old are you? It's like, okay, here's your drink, but you're underage, so you need to stop here. It's actually kind of interesting when they actually kind of sit down and talk. It's actually kind of fascinating, because it's like, oh man, like, it gives context to things even last season, like the whole memory of her and her mom's boyfriend, that whole situation. It gives more context for her, because for her, it's like she's lived her entire life never touching someone, so of course she wants to know what that's like. But the thing is, he turned her around and pushed her against the glass, and it's like, for her, it's like it's supposed to all be about love making, but older Sid, it's like, yeah, but it's kind of about power to a certain extent, but it is also about love. The fact is, do we ever find love? Do we get married? It's like, yeah, we fell in love, but then she talks about the David situation of he has powers, and it's a complicated situation, because she thinks about what David did to her last season, and it's like, he turned me around. I'm like, that's such an interesting way to kind of look at that, Like I said, always, it's fascinating. And even young Sid brought up something I didn't even think about. For her, it's like, that was her first and only experience with sex. And I'm like, that would fuck you up your entire life. Like, that being your only experience with sex? Like, holy crap. And it's like, I never thought about it, because like, of course you would never have sex with someone else, because you'd switch with them. It's actually kind of interesting, because Sid kind of explains what it's like switching with people. The whole act, because she could understand, because, there's no one else who could understand it better than she can. The whole aspect of like, yeah, it's funny and it's interesting, but when every time you come back, you feel dirty. For her, it's like, even when she smells, it feels like she has someone else's scent in her nose. And it's like, yeah, you got the whole thing of like, oh, it's a vacation, kind of step in other people's bodies, but she never talked about the whole fact is it made her feel dirty anytime she came back to being herself. And that was such an interesting, like, because I mean, we'd already experienced the dark side of her power, but to hear her firsthand kind of talk about like what having that power meant for her, what it took away from her, like seeing it and just seeing it is one thing, because you can build your own interpretation from it, but to hear her exact words, it speaks volumes, and I thought that was so interesting. I even brought up an interesting thing of like, you know, if we touched, like if we hugged right now, would we switch bodies? And I was like, would you? I was like, that'd be an interesting thing if you went back to the past as young Sid with future knowledge and stuff like that, and you hug and everything. Sadly, it turns out to be a time demon. Multiple things. It's so interesting that, like, I would have never really pieced it together, the whole cat thing, until Switch had pointed it out. I was like, oh, interesting, because like I do like their aesthetic of just like how they look. They look so blurred because they're kind of moving in between time, you know. And it's like I said, it seemed like something you would see in a horror movie, and it's aesthetically so cool. Like, I would love to see something like that kind of. Well, I'm sure there's horror movies kind of similar to that, but probably not in the same time regard, but still, like, it makes such an interesting monster. Which is interesting because you haven't faced too many monsters necessarily. There's the whole, obviously Farouk when he's kind of all monstrous in season 1, but that's about it. In season 2, there's the delusions that David fought that were inside of everyone's heads. Like, that's about it. The one that was, in particular, the one that was in Patanomy and escaped, leaving his body the way it was. But nevertheless, it's interesting because I referenced the Cheshire Cat before, but it's so interesting because they kind of remind me of a cross. Like, they remind me of like the Cheshire Cat, but if the Cheshire Cat wore an Oni mask, that's how they look, and they're so creepy with their big smile. Even at one point, David getting pissed is like, why do you keep smiling? It's so interesting too because kind of the whole Sid thing should have been a key side to me, because obviously we got the David situation first, so that should have been a key side to me. Like, that's not really Sid, but it didn't click in my head. It was like I was so caught up in the moment, I didn't even think about it until she started hugging her and tied her. I was like, it's a time demon in disguise, isn't it? Those are some tricky SOBs. They not only do they like messing with time, they love messing with you. I guess like the longer they get you in their grasp, like the more of your time they can eat up. And it's so interesting because, like, you know, because we see firsthand like what it is, like multiple times of like people getting turned to dust, things get like those lunch boxes of David's, like all of them getting like rusted and then turning to dust because their time is so fast forward. We saw it happen to people from the house and whatnot. And I guess the way things are, like once your time is eaten and you're turned to dust, there's no reversing that. Like I guess I don't even think if you went back in time you could change that, because I think those people just no longer exist. I don't know if there's any reversing your time being eaten. And you being reduced to dust. It doesn't seem like there's a way around that, but like I said, I'll get to that soon enough. But I love that whole thing with David. It's like him trying to talk to his mom, but his mom's like, it's okay, honey, I'm crazy too. He's like, no, I'm not crazy, which is like, you're a little crazy, but you know, once again, kind of something you adopted from both your mom, her crazy, and kind of got your dad's powers, so it's a combination of, you're just kind of screwed in that regard. But he's trying to talk to her, trying to warn her. It's like, okay, like I was like, okay, so you're gonna pop back at any moment, so you're trying to warn your mom. I was like, oh, will that have any effect? But no, it turns out the entire thing was a trick, and he got pissed, and he keeps trying to get in closer to the time demons that were messing with him, but every time they just push him back a little bit more time, he's like, okay, it's pissing me off. And then like he does the thing of just like, all right, there's like multitude of versions of himself. I guess that was him, like in every step he took, he was basically within that time frame, he's using his powers, and I guess it kind of accumulated all at once, making it so it's hard to say 100% what he did. It looks sick though, him getting all those multiple arms, each one kind of flipping him off and then like burning one at a time. Demons are like, oh, that got your attention. So I want you to go on, tell the rest of your people, this isn't their time, this is my time. And it's like, dude, because David kind of creeped in that lane of kind of his evil side, because he was like, I am basically calling himself God, you know, with his powers and everything. But to the point you can literally fight back things that eat time. Showed you how ridiculously powerful he is, but literally it's like, go before I kill every single one of you. And like that particular one goes and gathers the one that was trying to go after Sid, the ones that were attacking Clark and them, because obviously it wasn't just affecting isolated areas. I mean, it was, but it's also interesting because like when I'll get to it soon enough, Carrie and Switch were running away, like it's like, well, she's like, whoa, don't go there, and she throws a potted plant to show him like that particular area time is frozen. You step in there, you get frozen. But like I said, I'll circle back to that. But that was so interesting to me. Then the Lenny situation, she's trying to find Salmon. finds her, the baby gets born, but time is the way it is, and it's like she's fast forwarding throughout her daughter's life. And I guess it's kind of showing that Solomon probably most likely died early on in the girl's life because she was never there. Like, she was there for a little bit and then she disappeared, and she's there with her daughter as like a baby, then a kid, then a teenager, then a young adult, then midlife, and then an old woman. And it's like all that hitting you at once. That's super messed up. And then what happens? She wakes up from it all, and it's like there's a pile of dust in front of her. Both the baby and Salmon are going like that. That is so messed up. That's like, I'd say, one of the biggest casualties, especially because Lenny was like, oh, let's pack up her stuff and go, you know. She was kind of leaving David behind because I guess she just didn't feel appreciated. She didn't feel like she was needed anymore. Like, if it was David from season 2, sure, but the David that he is right now, it's just not worth it for her to stick around, because it's like, he's kind of replacing me with Switch anyway. It's like, he's got his own thing going on. I got to live my own life. And too bad she didn't kind of jump on that sooner, because now that's kind of taken from, and later on David wants to take that pain from her, but she's like, no, I gotta feel it. I'm curious to see what this means for her and David's relationship going forward, because obviously there's the whole thing of like, well, Lenny's part Amy, but is there any more of Amy there kind of driving her like it was last season? I mean, I never thought of it, but I guess you could make the argument maybe that was never Amy. Maybe that was like, I never thought about it until now, until now I'm sitting here thinking about it after having watched it. That might have been David inside of her head the entire time, pushing her in that direction to help him, you know, trying to attack her with her guilt with the whole Amy thing. But I thought that was some part of Amy still left, but they never really answered that. But I'm assuming that's just supposed to be, that could easily just be David messing with her. I mean, that's kind of a theme. Which, let's talk about Carrie. I love that once again, those little bastards are little tricksters, and the fact of the matter is, one of them literally left a pile of shit on one of his chairs, which is interesting since they eat time. Was it? I mean, I guess, because that's what I was wondering. I was like, wait, is that going to affect him because he's messing with it? And I guess it did, because like all the time David kind of took for him messing with his head, trying to get him on his side, was kind of all rushed back to him. So it's supposed to be like, I guess him interacting with that, it gave back the time that was stolen from him, messing with its poop, I think. You know, so, because I was thinking, like, do they poop time? Do they poop remnants of time? Like, it jogs something to your memory, I guess, because he was already in that condition because of his brain. I guess, like, it kind of bypassed that and gave him back the memories. It's like, oh, treachery. He runs into Switch, and I love him being like, oh, David must have gotten inside your head. I mean, to our knowledge, David never got inside of Switch's head. She kind of did what she wanted to fit in somewhere, potentially. But, you know, Carrie's under the impression, like, no, like, he obviously did something to you just like he did to me. They end up back on the ship. And they also brought up an interesting conversation, too, of like, okay, so what about the time demons? Do they act purely, are they cognizant, or are they just going by instinct? Like, do they actually have a plan, or they're just going, we're hungry, let's devour everything? Because it's so interesting, too, because it's like, how do we stop these things? You know, Switch is like, if these things keep eating time, we'll end up going back to the time of dinosaurs, and how are we going to face them when we're basically essentially reduced to dust because we've aged so rapidly? And so that was never kind of resolved on that front, because it was going to take Ptolemy like 3 years and some change to really compute everything, I guess, just because so much time was being eaten up. That's what was causing the problem. Nevertheless, so there's that. Then David comes back, everyone's surrounding him, they're like kissing on him and everything, and he just like pushes them all back with their power. And I think in that one moment, everyone became afraid of him, just because they're like, oh, like, because that happy demeanor that he kind of put on, like I said, it was a mask, and it was gone now. He was irritated just because of everything. It's just kind of like his attempt to save his mom didn't work out. Obviously, you know, Switch was reluctant to keep using her powers just because she didn't want to let more time demons in, but also like her teeth were starting to get loose because she already started losing another one, plus all her other teeth, she could feel them being loose. That sucks. But then, like, now we're in this situation of like, wait, where's Switch? Carrie took her, and like he's about to erupt, but then he stops and he says one thing. I rewound it. It sounded like he said war, which I'm like, oh snap. I mean, granted, they've got his time traveler, but that just puts a big target on Division 3's head now. Just because for him, it's like, I'm going to burn it to the ground. I'm going to burn you all to the ground. Because once again, it's not even about saving people anymore. For him, it's like, he wants to put it up like, oh, this is about, if I save myself, I'm saving money other people. It's like, no, at this point, he even admitted in the episode, it's not about anyone else. It's because even his fake mom being like, you could save all the people that are locked up here. It's like, no, this is about me. That's the thing. That's what it's always been about. And that's kind of a whole point that Sidney tried to make. The whole point that's been tried to get crammed in his head. Like, you're selfish. All you care about is yourself and the way other people see you. And for him, it's like, you know, he's in this to save himself. Yeah, if in byproduct he ends up saving some lives, sure. But for him, it's like, this is what you're not going to get in the way of me saving myself, because for him, he feels like everything was taken from him because of the whole Farouk situation. If I could stop that, then maybe I can fix everything, but it won't fix everything about you. And once again, I'm curious to see, like, you know, what the ramifications or ripples of the whole time thing is if he manages to do it. Obviously, going that far back was kind of a hassle for Switch, so I don't think that's going to be possible. But now they're going to be on guard for him because, like, yo, we got your time traveler. The question then becomes like, well, we know that she can go to the future. So are they going to try to utilize that as a means to know, oh, we'll go there, find out what happened, come back in time, and then we can operate in a way that we can take David down for good? I don't think she's going to be quick to help him, but I guess, you know, we might have Sidney kind of get inside of her head, or rather kind of tell her, explain everything wrong with David, and maybe Farouk plays his own part. Well, this way they don't have to kill her, so that's good. But I am so fascinated to see where things go. Because once again, it seems like David is losing his followings just because he's not the peaceful person he is anymore. Because, like, he's kind of going full rage. Like I said, he's declaring war. You know, it's like, I kind of kept to my own, but no more. The monster inside of him is starting to come out. And I'm so curious to see what that's all going to look like next episode. Something that should also be considered as well is the fact is, obviously Sidney was like, oh, this is how he destroys the world, which obviously it wouldn't technically be on him, but technically it would be because he's the one that kind of basically opened the doorway and everything. But now this presents a question again. How does David destroy the world if this isn't how he does it? And, you know, I guess because once again, it's just events compound upon themselves to eventually turn David into the villain that he's supposed to become, the one that wipes out the world, you know? So I don't know, something to think about. Dude, I'm so excited. Like I said, I cannot stress it enough. This was a fantastic episode. So much amazing stuff went down. I am so excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.